Well done.
Perfect. So I have this here. So welcome everyone. Happy, healthy, beautiful Saturday to everyone. Eric Higgins here, holistic health coach, actor, and all-round curious gentleman calling out of Ireland. I'm joined by my amazing partner, wife, Louisa. She's in Portugal right now, enjoying more sunshine than I am. And we're also joined by our very special main speaker, Dr. Bob Rakowski. And we're going to talk about combating chronic pain naturally. And it's a very important topic because people just suffer, people suffer unnecessarily in awful cases, and it's difficult to see people who are struggling. And we feel compelled to share some good information with those people so that they can go and live a better life. So we will be having a back and forth on this. We will have a Q&A. You will have an opportunity for about 10 minutes to ask specific questions if you have them, but we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we won't go too much beyond 10 minutes for a Q&A. And we will also touch on just how we've been able to leverage this information to create more stability and support in our own lives as well. So I just want to quickly introduce Dr. Rakowski. Dr. Bob is a clinical nutritionist. He's a chiropractor. He's a kinesiologist. He's 4 degrees and has spent the best part of 30 years accumulating knowledge on how to help people and practically apply it for them to go and live a better life. So he's just achieved his black belt or second black belt, or was the 3rd black belt in Taekwondo. There's a few of them anyway. So he's an accomplished athlete. So he walks the walk. He's the picture of health. He's a family man, and he's spent his time educating himself and working with the elite of the elite, from world-class athletes in his clinical practice in Houston, taking them from where they are to that last few percent of being world-class. And then also people who are on the other end of the spectrum, people who I mentioned, who have suffered with chronic illness, chronic pain, and the medical system has written them off. And when the medical system writes you off, what do? Most people put their trust in that, but it's a broken system. Not to say medicine is wrong. There's some great advances in medicine, but when it comes down to holistic health, you really need to get great advice and look at the person who's giving you the advice. So the person we're going to have sharing this advice today and this information is someone who lives it. He's a great friend and a partner of ours. So we're going to get cracking. Dr. Rakowski, I'm going to hand you over, first of all, to my amazing wife. She has our first question she would love to ask. And let's just keep the conversation going. So, Isa, darling, how are you? Would you like to just take over and take it from there?
Yes, absolutely. Welcome, everybody. I think Eric did already a very good intro about this amazing guest of ours, Dr. Bob. It's a big privilege to have him coming here so then he can do the talk. I myself not very good in biology and health, kind of all this kind of chemistry kind of thing, complicated name is not really for me, but I can actually say, look, I don't know. I feel great about what we are going to share here today, but listen to this man. He knows a lot. And usually I bring questions to Dr. Bob that are very, very simple, very basic, but for me, I don't know the answers. And the first question I would like to ask you, Dr. Bob, is how would you define a chronic pain? Like what makes it to be classified as chronic pain?
Isa, I want to answer that in a second. I want to expand on what you just said. One of the first things I teach doctors all over the world is that physiology is infinitely complex. In fact, we'll never fully understand it, but health is not. If we master the basics, masterable by all of us, we can have a healthy, amazing, mostly pain-free life. And so chronic, by the medical definition, I go back 30 years ago and they said if your pain was more than 6 weeks long, they called it chronic. They've updated that definition to be 6 months or longer because so many people suffer with these, seasonal pain syndromes, which nobody should. So when it's been around and is mostly unrelenting for a period of 6 months, that's when medicine is comfortable calling it chronic. And I think there's different reasons for that, probably having to do with medications they can get away with prescribing and including things like insurance reimbursement. But 6 months of horrific discomfort and medicine calls it chronic.
You've been teaching some of the best athletes in the world, but also teaching doctors natural medicine for, I guess it's coming up to 30 years as well, Dr. Bob. What are some of the main conditions of chronic illness you see in your clinical practice in Houston?
Yeah, when we start talking about chronic pain, chronic illness, the two of them absolutely go together. But if we look at certainly globally, the number one cause of chronic pain is low back pain. And very, very often that's, starting with structural imbalance, but there can be things in the digestive system. And if the chemistry is off, pain is more likely to start and progress. Number two source are actually chronic headaches. And then, as you mentioned, chronic disease. I'll give that third category as the source of chronic pain, because whether it's some type of arthritis or fibromyalgia, or God forbid, cancer has a horrific pain associated with it. These chronic breakdowns in bodies and systems are going to be a very common source of chronic pain.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that about the gut and about the midsection, our core being at our center of our body. I learned a while back on a podcast about the dysfunction of certain organs around the core. So if this fascinated me, how connected the body is. If someone had a digestive problem, let's say their gut was inflamed, or they're eating the wrong foods and the gut was inflamed, the nervous system switches off the associated muscle system around there. So if that person goes and starts to train or exert themselves, they're a ticking time bomb for injury. So I just found it was fascinating, the connections between all the systems. And you mentioned something I wanted to ask a next question on. What are some of the primary causes of chronic pain, let's say, that you see coming into your clinical practice? Obviously excessive sitting is one of them, and causing low back pain. What else do you see that maybe people could improve on?
Well, besides most things, and Eric, I love to quote an article that came out in 1989, and it was entitled The Deadly Quartet, the 4 things that kill you. And it was actually written from a medical perspective. And they said, you know what, if you have a big belly, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high insulin, if you have high blood fats like cholesterol and triglycerides, you're going to die early. But as we dig deeper into that, the true deadly quartet, the actual deadly quartet, includes stress, toxins, malnutrition, and physical inactivity. And all 4 of those can create a circumstance of chronic pain, and that or chronic inflammatory process. Chronic inflammation is associated with all chronic illness, and it's also associated with chronic pain.
Yeah. We know that many people, and I was one of them before I met you, Dr. Bob, and before I learned about reishi, I was someone that for any single pain I would feel, I would take painkillers. I would like to know, and that's something that I would definitely talk to my parents and to people that I know close to me that use and abuse about painkillers. What are the dangers of the long-term use of painkillers to hide the pain of chronic pain, for example?
Well, I want to start with the obvious one, is people not addressing cause and effect. If you've got a pain, it's a warning signal from your body. And my mentor said, imagine you have a flashing light on your dash that says brake fluid low, right? And you just put a sticker over it and you don't look at it. Well, you're a disaster waiting to happen, or whether it's the engine overheating or very low oil or whatever. When you ignore a signal, ultimately, if it keeps going unchecked, it can become very, very severe. But when we start talking about medications, my very first pharmacology course was from a 30-year pharmacist, and his very first statement was this: a drug without a side effect is not a drug. So we look at even these very simple things like aspirin. If someone has an over-the-counter bottle of aspirin, and their child just happens to get into it and go, oh, this looks interesting, and they take the whole bottle, well, that's a very bad outcome. They're probably not going to survive that. But even if it's an adult that's doing it consistently, if people take that category, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, for more than 2 weeks, there's generally some bleeding within the gastrointestinal system. So those are the nonsteroidals. Then you start looking at the steroidals, and those have huge side effects in that they become addictive, they cause fluid retention, they cause immune suppression, and the government guidelines is pretty clear. The Food and Drug Administration says if you're going to take a drug, you should take the lowest dose for the shortest duration. But then the real dangerous category are the opioids. They are highly addictive. We can go back already 13 years. The year was 2008 here in the US. And the published statistics were that more people would die from prescription opioid overdose than in automobile accidents. And even with that said, over here, opioids are the absolute #1 prescribed category of drug in the US. And if we were to dig into that a little further, what we found later is that was a significant risk factor for a virus that was getting a lot of press, and for reasons of not wanting a video blocked, we won't mention the name of the virus, but most people probably know there was a virus that people were getting a lot of news on last year.
Yeah, it's I saw a documentary recently as well on wrestlers and their life and how it just went down the toilet. And I was a big wrestling fan when I was a kid. I used to love it. I think this is amazing. I don't know how I didn't end up becoming a wrestler, maybe, but it fascinated me when I looked at all.
Yeah, still good.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'm past my time for that. Perhaps I don't have the appeal. Maybe storytelling, yes, but jumping around in tight pants, I think I'll leave that for behind closed doors. But not to digress too much, but I found it was very saddening to see a lot of their downfalls were pain medications, because these guys are on the road 300 days a year. They're falling into a trap of taking these, putting the Band-Aid on the problem, so to speak, but it won't go away. Even myself, as I mentioned to you in our chat recently, I had an issue with my neck. I mean, it's a whole lot better now because I did some therapy on it and got really working on it. But we can't put Band-Aids on problems. We have to address the main source of the problem and take ownership of that before you go down the rabbit hole of a lot of these athletes and celebrities as well. You see people just depending on them. It's such a dangerous game to be playing, because your life is at stake, and there's a part of me actually enjoys pain. I enjoy it to the point, and my mom jokes about this as well. It's like, we're very alike in that you enjoy a bit of pain, but it's more so the fact that you feel connected to yourself. It's like, I'm getting a signal here, I'm getting communication here, I'm feeling more connected with myself, and I need to know more information or get better information. So really, when it comes to natural protocols, everyone knows, and you said this beautifully recently, there's no such thing as the side effect. There is no such thing. It's direct effect. Yep. So we know that all medications have a direct effect. What are some of the natural protocols that you would go to help someone with chronic pain? Let's say maybe your top 5 or 6 things that you go like, okay, we need to look at this.
All right. Well, if we go with the deadly quartet, right? Stress, toxins, malnutrition, physical inactivity, maybe we go with the easy one, physical inactivity. People need to move more. And, there's global statistics about how many steps people need each day to combat chronic depression. If it's less than something like 5,500 steps a day, which for active people like us, it's unimaginable that someone would not move around any more than that. But that's definitely associated with depression. And so we've got to move our bodies. We can't be stationary. When we start looking at toxins, one of my mentors said this: it's not us against them, it's us with them. There's toxins in the air, there's toxins in the food, there's toxins in the water. So we want to make the healthiest, cleanest choices that we make, but we still need then ways to get toxins out of our body. And later we'll talk about reishi specifically, how it is an antidote to some of the worst toxins in the history of the planet. Toxins that are known to cause Parkinson's in a single dose. Toxins that can, damage the liver, the pancreas, leading to type 1 diabetes. Toxins that damage the liver, leading to liver failure. When animals are studied with these toxins, but yet given Ganoderma, those long-term problems don't happen, which is, nothing short of miraculous. When we look at stress, you'll appreciate this because I watch you move and I watch you teach and I watch you in ISA, and you're just gifts to the planet, but it starts with breathing. You take a deep breath, and that cleanses and nourishes and centers the body, mind, and spirit. And the Navy SEALs will do it as well. If people are really under stress, there's three things I like. Melatonin every waking hour puts the brakes on stress in the body. Theanine every waking hour buffers the stress in the mind. And Ganoderma, interestingly enough, buffers the stress in the body, mind, and it's even called the herb of spiritual potency. Then when we start talking about malnutrition, now literally I could talk for weeks on this, and I have. I've taught hundreds of hours of clinical nutrition. But let's start with food. If God made it, it's okay. If man made it, throw it away. Then we go to superfoods. Those are foods that almost wear like that superhero cape. They have all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health. But then other special botanical components, Ganoderma being the king of herbs, coming up on 2,000 published studies. Then if we keep going up the pyramid, there's things I like functional foods, a good multivitamin, omega-3s, probiotics, and we'll finish with a combination of D3, K2. But, in the opening statement that Isa led to so beautifully, physiology is infinitely complex, health is not. Biochemistry is infinitely complex, good nutrition is not. If we just follow those guidelines, anybody in any state can improve their circumstances. That's
amazing. That actually leads perfectly to my next question. That would be, I know that when we talk about published studies, I've been very curious to go to PubMed and read some of these studies. And sometimes I even feel that my English is improving because I'm learning new terms and everything. And I'm always fascinated by the reishi studies that have been conducted in many aspects, but I would love to know, Dr. Bob, what are the most significant studies you came across that were done with reishi about in pain, chronic pain, or any type of pain?
You know what I think I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Sure. And then I'm going to step through because I did prepare some. And by the way, anytime there's an inflammatory process, pain is a component. So we want to be able to deal with inflammation. And Isa, your beautiful artwork helped to put together this slide, so I'll thank you for that. But I call out 3 different PubMeds within this one here, and this one here. And it shows over a dozen mechanisms by which reishi or Ganoderma combats the chronic inflammatory process. And here's something that I want to say about, natural molecules. They can't be patented, but the advantage of natural molecules is they are profoundly safe. Instead of basically telling the body, look, you don't have a choice, I'm forcing the process in this direction, it creates a whole series of nutrients. In fact, Ganoderma has 430 unique nutrients. And so you have 430 different coaches that are saying, okay, if we do this, we're going to get better faster. If we do this, we're going to get better faster. If we do this, we're going to get better faster. If we do this, if we modulate this inflammatory signal, we'll promote healing, but we're going to let this one go because this inflammatory system is still cleaning up some of the debris and damage. And this inflammatory signal is fighting infection. And so when you look, when people start taking pharmaceuticals, sure, they make the pain a little better, but they slow the healing process. They shut down the immune process. But when they take Ganoderma, then the healing process is actually accelerated. And, we're coming up on 2,000 studies and 4,000 years of human clinical use that all show that. By the way, all showing no toxicity to this at any dose and even no drug interaction, which is beyond profound.
That's amazing. I actually would like to take the chance now to invite a special guest that I talked to this week. I actually had the pleasure of sharing her beautiful video that she posted on the Miracle of Oregano Facebook group. I came across, and that brought tears to my eyes because I'm always very emotional to see what we can actually do by the word of mouth. Where can we actually spread the awareness about reishi? And Cecilia, she's not part of our direct team, but she agreed on come on, and that's what I think is so beautiful about this family that you started, Dr. Bob, is because we want to help each other. Regardless of we are in direct team or not, she's here today taking time of her day to come share with you guys her beautiful story. So please, Cecilia, please share your story.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So I'm very lucky and I'm very fortunate that I have actually, she's still my friend, a very good friend who introduced me to Rishi. And so my story is pretty simple. I am right now a mom. I am happily married. I have two small children. One is 5.5, the other is 3.5. And for as long as I can remember, I've been in chronic pain in one form or another, to the point where I actually thought it was normal. And as I got older, taking over the counter ibuprofen, acetaminophen, it was like popping candy. And I didn't know any better. My family didn't know any better. Sometime after I had my son, I could not take it anymore. Had very little support from doctors. Eventually, some doctor put me on a medication that numbed the pain. Terrible side effects. Going to work was a struggle, but I did it anyways because I had to. So when my friend told me about reishi, I had to look it up. And when I found out what the Chinese name for it was, I was like, hey, I've heard of this when I was a kid. But my family's knowledge was very, very limited. So I took a chance. I tried it. And I am so much better. So much better now. The video that Elisa is talking about, it was a video that was taken back in January, where I was giving my 36-pound daughter a piggyback ride around the house. I was never able to do that. Previous times, because she's a kid, I wanted to try, I would be crying in pain later that day and trying very hard until I got my own time in my own bedroom to not cry in front of her, and to best of my ability with what mental capacity I had to be there for my kids and be there for my husband. During that time, last year, actually, in the fall, I decided to take a break from the reishi to see what life would be like, to see if I could go on without my medication. My family begged me to go back on it. My daughter said to me, I want my mommy back. And it made me cry. My husband said, you're not you. I don't know what to do with you. And when I heard all of that, I was like, nope, I am going back on. I am never coming off of this ever again. As of today, I believe I am just over 2 months completely off all of my meds. That makes me really happy.
It makes me so happy too. And I know what it must mean to you as a mom to have this experience with your daughter and your son. And I know that I don't have a child myself, but I know they grow very fast. And so thank you very much for taking the leap of faith to see if that would work for you, if reishi would work. And here we go, like the miracle of oregano has worked its wonders. And thank you very much for coming along and sharing today.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
Great. We would have another guest today, Carmen as well. She had a very beautiful turnaround since she started taking reishi, but unfortunately she had a family issue, so she couldn't attend. Dr. Bob, I actually would love to know if you remember some story that may have come to your knowledge of someone from the team or maybe some patient of yours that you could share with us in relation to chronic pain.
You know, there are so many, and let's start with, you know, one of the more common medical mysteries of chronic pain, something called fibromyalgia. And, you know, you look around the world and it tends to hit women more than men, but if just take the word fibro, meaning almost like scar tissue or fibrous, myo being muscle, algia being pain, it's a condition of fibrous, painful muscles. And so since they're fibrous, They don't move very much. Since they have pain, they don't move very much. Those two things lead to fatigue and often lead to depression. And it wasn't too long ago that if someone had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia and medicine, said, I'm sorry, there's not anything we can do for it, it had a very high suicide rate. Imagine you were always in pain, getting progressively worse. Well, a wonderful 6-week study on Ganoderma and fibromyalgia showed that within just 6 weeks, Ganoderma was phenomenal at decreasing the pain of fibromyalgia. It decreased pain, increased function, improved range of motion. Then we can look at another serious chronic condition like rheumatoid arthritis. And this is a crippling issue. By the way, it's also, the cause of it, unlike fibromyalgia, which they say is unknown, the cause of rheumatoid is known to be autoimmune. Now, we've done full Zooms on that. It's not like the body says, oh my gosh, I hate my joints, I want to kill them. Something goes wrong that triggers that inflammatory process. And just like anything else, if we can get after cause and effect, we can make it go away. Ganoderma is listed as a universal immune modulator of rheumatoid, of all autoimmunity. And this was a study where they showed that it was even more effective than the top prescription pain reliever for rheumatoid arthritis. And then the last one, shingles. Shingles is an absolutely horrific condition. And when people have shingles, they feel like they have a nerve that's on fire. There's just horrific pain in certain parts of the body. Again, medicine doesn't have much to offer for them. This was a medical study. It didn't study straight up Ganoderma. It studied Ganoderma and ginseng. But within 10 days, people had complete relief. And at 1 year, they didn't have any reoccurrence, whereas medically, the reoccurrence would be about 12.5% per year. So very, very effective for these 3 horrific conditions. Anybody who suffers from any one of those 3 would they'd be an easy person to say, look, this is proven to help. Why don't you give it a shot? They would, and they'd be smiling, essentially forever after that.
Amazing. I just wanted to add as well, just on top of that, your years doing what you're doing, my years doing what I'm doing and being curious and asking questions, something very apparent comes to light. And that is that people are creatures of habit. And you could give them the best solution. You could give them a platter. You could even have a really nice, well-dressed gentleman serving it every single day, and they still might refuse it for one reason, is that people don't do what they don't want to do in order to get better. They only want to do what they want to do, and if it's in a habit. So the genius for me when I saw this, even as a skeptic, was that our CEO, Bernardo Chua, just said, look, let's just put the health in the habit. People won't forget to drink coffee or tea every morning. I think that was something that really made sense to you as well, Dr. Bob, and for your patients. And obviously to share this with other people was you didn't have to really change much about yourself. You just needed to adjust to what you were doing.
Well, in many cases, it became easier. So when you look, our coffee's pre-brewed. So literally we have these beautiful sachets. You cut it open, you put it in a cup, you add hot water. And Eric, I was a huge coffee fan and have been for, right at about 40 years at this point. But I used to wake up and, first thing I do is brush my teeth. And the second thing I do is jump in my car and drive 10 minutes to Starbucks. And I would wait in line behind a bunch of crabby people. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of them hadn't yet brushed their teeth, which I don't understand that, but okay. And then they'd buy whatever coffee they were going to buy, pay for about $5 for it, and leave much happier after a few sips. And I was also happier after I got my coffee. But when I wanted my second one, well, guess what? I had to drive back and repeat the process. So now pre-brewed sachets just waiting there. I cut it open. I put it in my favorite mug, put hot water on top of it. And I've got as many coffees as I want super fast. And, by the way, they also travel really, really easy. And since I've taught nutrition all over the world, I'll tell you that the top reasons that people make any food or beverage choices, number one, it's got to taste good. So we've got that covered. Number two, it has to be convenient. We're more convenient even than the stuff they have to brew at home because ours is so fast and so easy. Next, it has to be affordable. Okay, cool. We're actually, less than half the price of Starbucks or Tim Hortons or wherever in the world you're watching where they have a major chain. And then the human's fourth criteria is health benefit. I'd like to see that move up to number one. But as Cecilia said so beautifully, she wanted to really see, okay, how far along the process am I? Let me stop. Well, a lot of people realize if they start drinking our coffee and they stop, there's something about their body that they didn't realize went away that starts coming back, whether it's headaches, whether it's joint pain, whether it's fatigue, whether they don't sleep as well, whether their digestion is off. All of the things that I just mentioned, there's not 1, 2, 3, or 5, but hundreds of medical studies that show that Ganoderma is good for all these things. And universally, people get better. And so let's just talk about that for a moment. Over 2 billion cups of coffee a day, about the same as tea. Here in North America, 2 out of 3 people every single day have coffee, and they have an average of 3.3 cups a day. So, it's a great way to add health with literally every sip.
Dr. Bob, it's something that always amazes me as well when we talk about business end of things, is that you can literally start this business even if you don't have any knowledge of anything related to health or to reishi or anything. I know that financial chronic pain wasn't where you were at when you started the business, because you're already very successful and very busy in where you in the things that you're already doing. But 2 stories really stuck with me. One was Diane Solano. It's an amazing woman that we have in the team as well. But specifically, other than Diane, I would love you to share as well about Emily Moreau, that did her business all solely on social media. And it's 2 things that I would like to touch, because like Cecilia was saying, she just knew about the business a little bit before the pandemic starts. So even network marketing had to change its way around, because we couldn't meet people face to face anymore. But yet we have the technology that can literally spread the word across the globe without you having to leave your house. So could you share those 2 stories with us, please?
Yeah, we'll start with Diane. So Diane, I definitely say that she's the top nutritionist, in Canada, possibly North America, possibly the world. She had huge impact on people's lives, including creating nutrient protocols for people on feeding tubes. And on that protocol, they woke up from a coma when medicine gave them no hope. So she's a very, very, very high level nutrition. She's also a super mom. And so when she became pregnant and she was about to have her son, she did what she does. She went around and she talked to moms and said, I want your best word of advice. And the most consistent advice she got was, if there's any way possible, stay home with your baby. You can't get that time back. Stay home. So as Diane says, she took a self-paid maternity leave for 3 years. So she completely stepped away from her very successful clinical nutrition practice. And as life sometimes throws us a curveball, just like that, her relationship fell apart. There was some things that happened where she said, okay, I guess we're done. I'm on my own, and that starts now. And she came to a nutrition seminar that I was teaching, and she asked me, she said, Bob, I've suddenly become a single mom. I've been away from practice for 3 years. Do you have any idea about how I can, start earning fast? How can I get patients in the door fast? And here's what I asked her. I said, well, Diane, what do you think is easier, sharing a cup of coffee or getting a new nutrition patient? And she laughed. She said, well, obviously sharing a cup of coffee. So we had this conversation and she asked me, look, you're in it. Tell me what it's doing for you. And I told her, I have more time freedom than I've had in my entire professional life, because now I have a team of thousands of people sharing products with tens of thousands of people around the world. And the way our compensation works is every cup of coffee that goes through your organization, some profits come back to you. And Diane looked at me, she says, you know what, if you're in, I'm in. And within a very short period of time, she, started making very significant income. And within 2 years surpassed her nutrition income, while working from the comfort of her phone. And she and her son travel the world from adventure to adventure. So they've created an epic life. Emily Morrow, I want to go back to a point where Emily wasn't doing so well. And I do have liberty to share some of this, but she reached out to me as a patient. And at that time, she had two defined medical conditions. We can't name them because we can't make any type of health claims or disease claims, but they were in the category of autoimmune. And she was 40 pounds overweight and she was jaundice and nothing was moving her in the right direction. So I mentioned in the intro that Ganoderma is a universal immune modulator. There are others. We created a comprehensive protocol, and the primary addition to what she was doing was the Ganoderma. And just like that, her jaundice went away. The liver markers normalized, the inflammatory process normalized, the fluid and the weight started coming off. And it's interesting because I asked Emily, I said, do you have a picture from back then? She said, I didn't want anybody taking my picture back then. So she doesn't. She was so embarrassed. Now, you being as beautiful as you are, and Emily in that same category, if you were 40 pounds overweight, you probably wouldn't want to put that on social media every day or even want anybody to capture that. And that's how it was with Emily. But when she got her life back, the pandemic took away one of her sources of income. She was an elite trainer like you are. And next thing you know, she had to figure out how to do it virtual. And so she started sharing the coffee and what it had done for her. And she literally built a team of thousands that have done millions in sales and went from, a very bleak future to one which is beyond bright. And all because of the power of the product and the reach of social media. And, there's a lot of people that can post a lot of things, but when you post from the heart with the most sincere before and after, this is what it did for me, just try it. People get the energy in that message. And that built a mega empire, which, by the way, grows every single day, which is so beautiful to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those are the stories that I wanted to share. And I wanted to make even more stories like that, because we now know that the new norm is probably going to be the way it is now. Like, people probably going to have still the fear of get in contact with other people and everything else. But guys, we are living on a time where we have the world on the palm of our hands. And even people saying like, oh, I don't know how to deal with social media. I don't know how to handle, how to do this and that. The whole thing about network marketing is that you are doing a business for you, but you're not by yourself. We have a team that is here to help you, and everybody in our team is here to say that we provide the support that is needed. Like myself and Eric are committed to make Race Warriors a community that's going to provide the support. It doesn't matter if you are very knowledgeable about social media, if you have a big reach, a big following, or if you don't. Like Dr. Bob said, when you share your message and your testimony from the heart, you're going to find people that need the information. And that's what matters the most. So I would like to say thank you, Dr. Bob, so much for taking the time to come here. Thank you, Cecilia, as well, for coming and share your story. I know Eric wants to talk. I'm going to hand it to you, honey.
I thought you were going to wrap it up there all of a sudden,
no,
really abruptly.
I'm just finishing here. Thank you.
Do you actually really appreciate being around people? As an actor, it's easy for me to speak. I've always been talking, and I talk too much. But it's so great to see Isa coming out of her shell over the last few years, expressing her own voice, expressing her own talents through design, and adding such a unique dynamic to me as a person, but also to us as a unit in business, and just making everything more beautiful. But I also saw just out of the corner of my eye, Claudio just nodding his head, and I just saw his cross in the thing. It was like a clip out of one of those hip hop videos there, as he was nodding with the in agreement to our movement. But lastly, guys, I just want to touch really quickly, if there's any questions you guys may have. I saw a couple of comments coming in there, just in regards to either the health benefits or ratio or anything we've discussed, either product, like I said, or business related. Please feel free to ask, because you have someone on the call who's an actual seasoned veteran right now in this game, and has created huge success. So I saw people saying hello from South Africa. Hey guys, I see Zaf Khan. My grandmother on the father's side is diabetic, and her foot was turning black as I believe clotting was occurring. And she was in so much pain. She was on a lot of meds. The Ganoderma green tea saved the foot. Wow. The clotting is gone. The foot is not swollen anymore. Little changes are a great benefits. So, wow. Pretty amazing there. We've seen a lot of people with sugar handling challenges rectified, which is fantastic. There's a question here in regards to, I'm interested in the conflict between caffeine for patients with chronic pain and sensitive nervous system versus the amazing benefits of reishi. Often advised to reduce caffeine. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly that's a common recommendation because caffeine is a stimulant. But there's some very interesting data on caffeine. It's in over 60 different species of plants. It's a natural insecticide. There's a 5.1 million people year study. So they looked at, X number of people for X number of years. And quite simply, they found that people that consume the most coffee live the longest. Now we start throwing in Ganoderma, which has proven anti-aging, proven immune modulation, proven immune protection, so many different things. It's a great benefit. But when we talk about stress and we mention that Ganoderma calms the body, mind, and spirit, I always encourage people, if you're very, very, very caffeine sensitive, coffee sensitive, try ours. Try it within reason. Take a sip and pay attention to your body and listen, and take another sip and listen. And, one of our very famous business partners is a guy named Manny Pacquiao, won championships in 10 different divisions, won over $200 million in the boxing ring. Pacquiao was offered a cup of coffee and he said, I don't drink coffee. It makes my heart race. Now, as a doctor, I couldn't tell someone, look, this is not going to make your heart race, but I could say, there's so many ways that this is good for the heart, including dilating the blood vessels, great for nitric oxide, a natural parasympathetic nervous system activator. This, I believe, will buffer those effects. Give it a try. Well, Pacquiao, literally took a sip of the coffee and he said, my heart isn't racing. Took another sip, felt better yet. Took another sip, felt better yet. Drank the whole cup, asked for a second, asked for a third. Then he had the workout of a lifetime, and he went back to the person that offered to him and said, this is amazing. How do I get more? And what a beautiful conversation, because Pacquiao, the person that gave it to him, said, look, you have three choices. You can be a retail customer. Hey, I'm more than happy to sell it to you. You could be a wholesale buyer, and even the rich want to save money. But he said, with your influence and your desire to make the world better, you could become a business partner, and together we could impact thousands of families. And that's what Manny Pacquiao decided to do. He literally built a multi-million-dollar business, boom, just like that, became a diamond in the company, which is a very high distinction. And you only get there by helping many, many, many families. So usually on the order of thousands. And that's what he did. And that's the offer here. When you feel better, do you want to be a retail customer? We love our customers. Do you want to be a wholesale buyer? We love our wholesale buyers. Do you want to get paid to consume and share? We love our distribution partners. And we're here now to support them. And this makes it easier than ever. If you can point someone to a Zoom, there can be world-class people, like you and Isa, sharing the information, how it's impacted your life. And people like Cecilia that are saying, my gosh, this was a game changer. My kids have their mother back. Imagine being able to do that for a whole bunch of women that are in chronic pain. And then that chronic financial pain, when we can get paid on the efforts of what we do first, and then many, many, many generations beyond. There was a video made about that a few decades ago. It was called Brilliant Compensation. And it really is. We get paid brilliantly according to the impact that we create in the world.
I love that. I think I might have skipped over accidentally Molly's question. So I do apologize, Molly, but I see Molly may have asked it again or in a different way. Can someone who needs to have a knee and a hip replacement be healed with reishi? Well,
one, when you start using that term, there's plenty of data that they can be healed with or without it. You start looking up Dr. Joe Dispenza and his work on quantum healing, and you are the placebo, and can severe degenerative conditions resolve somewhat miraculously? Yes, they can. Now, how often does that happen? In my opinion, not often enough. But if we start controlling the inflammatory process, if we start nourishing the body, if we get the body in a state of deeper sleep, if we alkalize it, if we kill off chronic infection, if we enhance the digestion, if we drive the parasympathetic nervous system, the healing system, if we get a calmer brain, are we more likely to do it? Well, the answer is yes. But again, I see some people that are very proactive. When those joints are that worn out, the path of least resistance often is a replacement in rehab. And I've seen some people that have been profoundly healthy, profoundly proactive, but they have a bad enough injury and they say, you know what? I get this knee replacement, and with the way I rehab, in 3 months, I'm going to be significantly ahead of where I am now. That may be the path of least resistance, but I'm certainly for honoring anybody and everybody with whatever their choice. And would reishi help in both cases? And the answer is yes. You know, take reishi before surgery, it protects against the anesthesia toxicity, it facilitates the healing, makes sure there's not a surgery induced or minimizes the probability of a surgery induced infection, and on and on and on down the road. So it's a good strategy no matter what you choose. Beautiful.
I see another comment there as well from Marianne. I've had 27 operations. I have 24/7 pain, and the King help. Amen. So I assume the King is helping. So great to see that, Marianne. I see Claudio as well. Would you like to? You mentioned you want to share something in regards to arthritis, Claudio. Just unmute if you.
Yes. Yeah. Just able to unmute myself. Happy beautiful day. You know what? Being on this call on Saturdays, it's almost like we have no borders, which is absolutely awesome. Thank you for having this on Saturdays, actually, guys. Eric, Giza, Dr. Bob. I have a business partner from a few years ago that had arthritis, osteoarthritis. I'm not sure which one she had, but I was not able to shake her hand and how much pain she was in. I met with her at 11 a.m. in the morning. I left her with spores, our king of coffee, and our red tea. And I said, do the spores once every waking hour, drink your coffee as you normally would, and drink the red tea like your water. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a call from Jennifer crying on the phone, and I didn't know what I did, right? And all I hear coming from her is like, today you performed a miracle. I go, no, that's God's responsibility, not mine. But her pain in her hand completely subsided. And so her husband and her 27-year-old son were just in disbelief. So absolutely phenomenal.
What a result. I love it. And it just keeps on going, guys. It really does, So it comes down to this. It comes down to decision. I listened to Bob Proctor recently. You either decide to do something, and by not doing something, you're also making a decision. So we need to get out of our way. We need to really share stories, share solutions with people, and let the right open-minded people come to us, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel obliged to share this on a massive scale and have fun doing it and be myself and be my best self. So I'm going to hand you over to my amazing wife just to close out. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you if you're watching the replay. I hope this has affected you to take action that betters your situation, your family situation, and maybe a friend that you meet that you didn't know, but you have something to share that they'll forever be grateful that they left their skepticism at the door. So I'll hand you over to my queen. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. Dr. Bob, thank you once again for giving up your time and sharing your knowledge and doing so. Congrats again on your black belt. And Isa, I'd like to hand it over to you, my beautiful queen. Can't wait to see you soon.
I'm muted. Thank you, honey. Yes, guys, I just would like to say, just to finish here, sometimes we hear things that we never heard before and we are skeptical. Well, Eric always says skepticism is only valid in the absence of logic. And we had Dr. Bob here to share with us amazing proofs and studies that have been done in reishi. And just because we haven't heard, or maybe you haven't heard before, it doesn't mean that hasn't been for thousands of years being used by Chinese medicines and having so many amazing results. So maybe you don't suffer from pain, maybe you have someone in your family that do, or maybe you're going to come across someone in your life that's going to be complaining about pain, you're going to remember this day. Just don't forget, guys, we are here on a mission to impact the world by spreading the word about reishi. And you can help us. We have our Instagram, Reishi Warriors. We have 2 amazing pages on Facebook as well. So whoever invited you to this call, please ask them to add you to this Facebook page. where you're going to find a lot of more informations. And if the business is not for you, don't think that you're going to be selling anything. You're going to be serving people by informing and by sharing the benefits of reishi. And again, if you want to just start by trying, you won't be disappointed. Sometimes, like Cecilia said, we just take the pain or whatever we are going through, like maybe you don't sleep well, maybe you have some problem with digestive system like I did, and we just think that that's the new norm. It's not. So start today, maybe consuming some of the products and see for yourself, put to the test. And again, guys, thank you very much for everybody that attended today. Thank you, Dr. Bob, for giving your time. Thank you, Cecilia, for coming. Thank you, Claudia, for sharing. Thank everybody that left your comments as well. And we see you soon.
Ciao, everybody.
Ciao.
Love you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye
Thank
for
you again,
now.
Cecilia. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr.